You wake long before the sun rises, though you don't remember deciding to. Something stirs at the edges of your awareness, like a faint tapping on the wooden walls of a lonely camp. A samurai once opened his eyes to find his perimeter surrounded not by armored soldiers, but by whispering spirits tugging softly at the threads of his focus. They made no sound, yet they drained him. They made no movement, yet they pulled him off his path. He realized, in that dim breath of morning, that the deadliest enemy is not the one who charges toward your gate screaming, but the one who slips through the cracks while you sleep. You live in that same camp now. No swords, no arrows, no riders approaching across the horizon, only subtle ghosts disguised as conveniences. You call them harmless. You call them normal. You call them just for a second. But they surround you with greater precision than any enemy Musashi ever faced. They don't attack with force. They dissolve your resolve from within, grain by grain, until your mind becomes a battlefield abandoned by its own defender. Musashi wrote that the worst opponent is the one you invite willingly. He knew the seduction of distraction long before modern men drowned in it. Today, your enemies arrive through glowing screens, endless noise, trivial comfort, small hands pulling you away from your own life. You think you are choosing them, but they have already chosen you. And in this quiet realization, a cold truth settles over you. You have been ambushed for years without ever drawing your sword. This invisible enemy has walked through your unguarded gate every single day, and you greeted it like a friend. Now you stand on the edge of a painful awakening, because the first step to killing distraction is admitting it has already conquered you. The warrior sits in silence. His sword rests on his lap, untouched, yet alive with purpose. He breathes, and the world slows. Musashi taught that perception and sight are not the same. A distracted man sees everything, yet understands nothing. A disciplined man perceives the quiet tremors beneath a single moment and finds clarity inside them. You must learn this difference, because awareness is your first strike against the enemy that stalks your mind. There is a moment small, almost imperceptible, right before a distraction claims you. A vibration from your phone, a thought that flickers like a candle, a craving for noise, a tug toward something easy. Notice how often you follow without thinking. Notice how quickly your mind bends. Distraction does not overpower you. It invites you to abandon yourself. It whispers, and you obey. Awareness is the blade that interrupts that obedience. Imagine sharpening a sword on a stone. The metal sings under pressure. It resists, yet it yields. You are that metal. The whetstone is your attention. In each grind, each pass, each moment of deliberate awareness, you shape yourself. You learn the weight of your impulses. You feel the subtle shifts of your inner battlefield. You begin to see distraction, not as an external event, but as an internal fracture waiting to widen. Modern life pulls at you constantly. Notifications, opinions, obligations, people demanding mental space you never offered. But a warrior does not react to every sound of the battlefield. He listens for what matters. He quiets the noise within, so he can hear the truth beneath it. As your awareness grows, time changes shape. The battlefield slows, the ghosts lose their footing, and you start to perceive distraction as a shadow reaching for you rather than a command you must obey. This calm recognition becomes your advantage. This stillness becomes your preparation, because the man who sees clearly cannot be manipulated, and the man who holds awareness like a blade cuts through what once controlled him. There comes a moment in every warrior's life when he must choose what must die so that his path may live. Musashi understood this with a severity that most men today will never taste. He abandoned comfort. He walked away from clutter. He carried almost nothing but his swords and his discipline. He practiced ascetic rituals, not to punish himself, but to sharpen the spirit that carried him through each duel. He knew that a man burdened by unnecessary weight cannot move with precision and cannot survive long. You too carry weight, but your burden is not physical. It is woven from small compulsions, digital noise, idle habits, and unexamined comforts. You live inside a world that constantly adds, rarely subtracts. More apps, more distraction, more stimulation, more mental debris. Ancient solitude has been replaced by modern overstimulation, and you wonder why your mind feels heavy, slow, fragmented. This is where the ritual begins. Picture a bonsai tree, shaped with ruthless gentleness. Each branch that does not serve its design is removed, each excess leaf trimmed without hesitation, not out of cruelty, but out of devotion to the form it seeks to become. You must perform the same ritual on your life, one distraction at a time, one unnecessary attachment, one indulgence that steals more from you than it gives. Start with a single removal, a modest kill, one distraction cut away with intentional finality. Maybe it is a time-wasting app. Maybe it is a person who speaks only noise. Maybe it is a habit that promises ease, but delivers fragmentation. Eliminating it will feel like loss, but it is actually the first breath of freedom. This ritual is not about violence. It is about truth. It is about confronting the uncomfortable realization that your life is shaped not by your ambitions, but by the distractions you tolerate. You prune so your purpose may grow. You sacrifice so your strength may sharpen. And with each cut, you feel the quiet weight lifting, not quickly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. Like a warrior removing armor that no longer protects, only slows him. The freedom you seek is not found in addition. It is born through the solemn art of cutting away. Musashi never fought on a battlefield he did not first study. He shaped the terrain in his mind. He observed angles, shadows, distances. He understood that victory rarely comes from strength. Alone it emerges from control of the environment. A warrior who enters battle blindly dies blindly. A warrior who shapes the field shapes his fate. Your battlefield is not a field of grass or stone. It is the architecture of your daily life, your workspace, your habits, your digital borders, your hours, your rituals. Most men lose their battles because they fight in chaos. They build no structure. They defend no territory. They enter each day like wanderers stumbling into combat without armor. But when you control your terrain, distraction loses its advantage. Imagine constructing moats around your time periods where nothing can cross. Imagine gates that you open intentionally, not mindlessly. Imagine watchtowers built into your routines, moments where you scan for weakness before it becomes sabotage. This is not rigidity. This is strategy. This is how samurai moved through danger with precision, instead of panic. Notice the difference between drifting and directing. Drifting feels soft at first, then suffocating. You become prey to every minor impulse, every fleeting curiosity, every stimulus engineered to fracture your focus. But directing feels heavy, grounded. It feels like placing your feet firmly in the dirt and deciding where the next step will lead. A man who directs his life becomes a hunter, not the hunted. Chaos weakens the spirit. Disorder loosens your grip on yourself. But order, silent, intentional order, fortifies you. It gives you height from which to survey your mind. It grants you clarity to see distractions forming before they strike. And in that clarity, you regain your power. The battlefield is yours to shape. If you do not control it, something else will. Every man believes the greatest battles are fought against external enemies. But Musashi knew the truth. The real duel is always within. His greatest victories were not won with steel. They were carved out of hesitation, fear, and doubt. He understood that the moment you step onto the dueling bridge at dawn, the only opponent worth defeating is the one who whispers inside your own skull. Modern distraction thrives in that whisper. It feeds on indecision. It grows strong in the quiet moments when you hesitate, when you tell yourself later, when you negotiate with your purpose, when comfort sits beside you, patient and persuasive, offering soft cushions instead of sharp clarity. This is the duel: comfort versus purpose, noise versus direction, the inner wanderer versus the inner warrior. Step onto that bridge now. Feel the wood beneath your feet, cold with the weight of morning. Hear nothing but your own breath. That faint voice inside you, the one that bargains, delays, sabotages, walks out to meet you. It smiles because it knows your patterns. It knows where you are weak. It knows how easily you can be pulled from the path by a small impulse or a momentary desire. Distraction is not merely a habit. It is a form of self-betrayal. Each time you retreat from your own intentions, you strengthen the part of you that fears effort. And each time you choose the harder path, you cut deeper into the identity of the warrior you are trying to become. A decisive mind leaves no cracks. It moves with a quiet, unbreakable commitment. It does not argue with itself. It does not ask for permission. It does not need reassurance. It simply steps forward and strikes. This is the internal discipline Musashi forged through years of solitude, hardship, and relentless practice. You must learn to silence the bargaining voice, not with aggression, but with clarity, not with rage, but with resolve. The duel ends the moment you stop entertaining the part of you that seeks escape. When you commit fully, truly, fully, the enemy within loses its footing. Most men never win this duel because they never fight it. They surrender before drawing their blade. But you are here, on the bridge, facing the only opponent that ever mattered. And now, the question hangs in the cold air. Will you strike, or will you retreat from yourself again? There exists a moment in battle when the warrior no longer waits, calculates, or hesitates. The strike has already happened in his mind before his body moves. This is flow, the silent fury of a spirit aligned completely with its purpose. Musashi understood this deeply. He believed in formlessness, the ability to move like water, like wind, like something unbound by fear or thought. Flow is the antidote to distraction, not because it resists it, but because it leaves no room for it to exist. When you work in deep focused, really deep, the boundaries of time dissolve. The noise outside the gate fades into irrelevance. You do not think about finishing. You do not think about effort. You simply move, drawn forward by the momentum of your own commitment. Modern men glimpse this state, then lose it to trivial impulses. But you can cultivate it. You can make it a weapon. Picture a river carving stone, not with force, but with relentless continuity. Soft, unbroken, patient. Over centuries, it shapes mountains. Flow works the same way. It is not frantic. It is not rushed. It is the calm storm that reshapes your entire life through sustained, unwavering effort. To enter flow, you must first silence the internal noise. Then you step into the work with full presence, like a samurai entering a duel with no wasted motion. Distractions may knock on the gate, but you do not turn your head. You let them pass like meaningless travelers. You remain immersed, untouchable, and in that state, you glimpse what you could become. A man who does not flee from difficulty, but disappears into his mission. A man who loses himself not in trivial comforts, but in the craft that defines him. A man who moves without hesitation because the path beneath him has become part of his identity. Flow is not a luxury. It is the warrior's natural state. It is the silent fury that turns intention into destiny. In his final years, Musashi withdrew into solitude. He lived in a cave, carrying nothing but his writings, his discipline, and the remnants of a life shaped by thousands of battles, most of them internal. He wrote of the void, a place beyond form, beyond noise, beyond distraction. Not emptiness, but clarity. Not silence, but truth. You live in a world that screams for your attention. Every moment is an invitation to abandon yourself. Every device is a doorway into someone else's noise. But the warrior walks another path, a narrow, quiet road carved by intention, not impulse. A path without noise. Imagine walking through a forest at dawn. The air crisp, the world still. No voices, no demands, only your footsteps, steady and certain. This is the path the samurai walked, and this is the path you must reclaim, not as an escape, but as a foundation. Distraction killing is not a temporary tactic. It is a lifelong discipline, a way of living that protects the inner flame from the cold wind of a world addicted to noise. You do not need perfect silence. You need chosen silence. You need a mind that no longer bends to every impulse, every whisper, every engineered temptation. A mind that has learned to move through the world untouched, unshaken, untouchable. Because a man who masters his focus becomes something rare, someone the world cannot manipulate. Someone who walks with a quiet confidence. Someone who no longer seeks distraction because he has become aligned with himself. This is the path you step onto now. Not loud, not dramatic, just true. A samurai does not kill distractions out of anger, but out of devotion to the life he is carving. And now, you pick up that same blade, and the world finally grows silent.